Why are people considered dumb if they don't know things? Like, how are they supposed to know if nobody tells them? Intelligence is mostly a fixed quantity. Knowledge and wisdom are not fixed. You don't need anybody to tell you stuff. You just need to be curious and ask questions. You basically have all of the knowledge of our entire civilization at your fingertips. So, if you want to learn something, go learn it. I know someone's dumb if they have absolutely zero interest or ability to discover more about the world they are trapped in. When they encounter a situation or problem they are unfamiliar with, walk away instead of thinking, all right, I don't know how to deal with this, but I want to try and figure it out. Lack of intuition and possibly ignorance to the fact that being stupid or naive makes you easy for others to take advantage of. Say you're terrible with numbers, do you double-check your mental math against a calculator or give up and accept being given the wrong change or a smaller paycheck? If you're terrible at spelling or reading, are you browsing dictionaries and thesauruses? Are you keeping these within reach when you try to read a book? If you're watching a movie or show and they talk about something you're not familiar with, do you pull it up on Wikipedia? You had, before the advent of AI bullshit, had access to the total sum of all information on planet Earth. You still do if you put the effort into located libraries, old websites, talking to people who know stuff you don't. I reckon what makes someone certifiably dumb is if they have all of this in their lap and either never figure out how to use it or don't want to use it after being shown how to. How are they supposed to know if nobody tells them? Because I expect you to have done some basic homework in advance. X, if you went shopping for, say, floor mats for a car, I'd expect you to know the make model year of the car. It's red and has 4 doors is not acceptable. I don't expect you to be a mechanic because you own a car, but the minimum is that you should have at least skimmed the owner's manual. Well, things is a really wide term. Which things? Doesn't know how to tie a shoe, don't know names of days of the week, can't name all the continents, has no idea about reproduction of African catfish, can't tell the weight of a €1 coin? While I empathize with the question, you'd be surprised how many people actually treat you with respect and help you learn when you actively express a desire to learn calmly and curiously. My early education went very poorly. I had a lot of things going on and neglected middle school and high school. I actually got charged and cleared with off truancy and only attended about a 14th of high school before just never showing up again after graduation. I have since gone back and acquired my GED and went to college. I'm currently on hiatus, though. When I interact with people, I make it clear that I'm ignorant, but I don't really hang on it. People tend to be excited about teaching me things, and I reciprocate and match that excitement when learning. Nobody wants to deal with someone lamenting their lack of knowledge and letting it get in their way of life and interactions. There's also a ton of people who make it easy to judge them for it by blaming it or others for it. Then, of course, there are assholes. Intelligence is how well your brain works, basically. How well you can gather information and use it to your ability. For someone to say another person is dumb for asking certain questions would imply they are asking questions that can easily be figured out by others through the environment, context, and common knowledge past experiences. There's also so much free information about nearly every topic available at our fingertips. It can be frustrating for some people to frequently answer questions they feel like someone should have already figured out themselves by now. I'm concerned that you are externalizing fault. Maturity involves being accountable for your own shortcomings. One doesn't sit around, waiting to be told things. One must actively seek knowledge. Libraries are still free, even if the internet can become costly. I teach high school, and sometimes when a kid asks a question, I just answer it, and sometimes I say, "Great question," before I answer it. A kid asked me one day what qualifies as a great question. I had to think about it for a minute because I didn't even realize I was saying it, but I figured out my standard. If you had no way to obtain that information besides pulling out your computer in class and Googling it before you asked the question, it's a great question. It shows me you're paying attention and thinking. If you've had multiple opportunities to know that information, because I've already said it 3 times, it was in the passage you were supposed to read, it's common knowledge from media or just being a person. I'm not going to be a jerk about it when you ask your question, but it lets me know you're not trying very hard. Because so many people don't understand that knowledge and intelligence can be 2 different things. I've met people who judge you or think they are smarter than other based on the fact that they know things others don't, even though the other person has no good reason to know that thing. OMG, dude, you don't know what fuel injectors do? Or are you serious? You can't tell the difference between a Gucci and a Coach purse? Ignorance and stupidity aren't the same thing. Ignorance is a lack of knowledge. Stupidity is a lack of intelligence. It's easy to gain knowledge, but intelligence isn't quite as easily obtained. It was really surprising to me when Russia invaded Ukraine that my friend didn't not just know about Ukraine, but also didn't know where Russia was or anything about it. Like that it was a country, which is just hard for me to understand. How do you not know about Russia? That seems wild. So at that point, what do you tell the person? Russia is a country. That isn't enough. Not knowing a great deal of well-established knowledge is often a sign of lacking curiosity. One of the biggest things that intelligent people do is constantly seek to learn new things. Also, we live in an era of all the world's knowledge in a magic glowing box in your pocket. There's no excuse for it. Finally, if not knowing things isn't a sign of being dumb, what would you say is? I think dumb is a term used that is probably more often meant to depict people who lack curiosity, not actual intellect. Because we don't know what we don't know. But a lack of curiosity is a roadblock to learning more and developing stronger critical thinking skills. Smart people will find something out for themselves, either by looking it up or figuring it out based on things they've already learned. Dumb people rely on others to tell them. Knowing facts isn't necessarily the same as intelligence. You can teach a literal parrot to recite back seemingly complicated facts, or you can have someone with very strong intellectual ability as measured in being able to think logically or strategically, identify subtle patterns, and solve problems, who just happens not to have been exposed to some particular fact. But there are some facts, so basic that it can seem implausible that you were never exposed or never took the time to try to find out, where it feels more likely that the explanation for your not knowing is that you had the opportunity like everyone did, but nonetheless failed to learn or understand or retain the information. Which then does seem like it speaks ill of your brain's abilities. It's not an entirely fair inference to make, nor a strictly valid conclusion. But we live in a world of incomplete information and finite time energy, where we have to make some snap judgments according to the plausible common case rather than investigating to eliminate every possible alternative. You're supposed to be curious enough to go find that information yourself. There's a difference between asking questions to expand your knowledge versus asking questions you can easily answer yourself or should know the answer to. Like basic facts that are easily searchable on Google are questions that may make someone come off as dumb or lazy simply because it's an easy question to answer via Google. Comparatively, a more technical question that still requires interpretation even if you Google the answer isn't necessarily indicative of someone being lazy dumb. Also, the perspective of the people seeing someone ask a question matters. Like if someone is supposedly an educated individual in a specific field, and they ask a question that is very common or basic knowledge for that field, it reveals a very concerning gap. Like if a supposed lawyer or Juris Doctorate holder asks something like, what's the point of an ethics code, or what are civil rights, for example. These questions may be legitimate questions for a layperson outside the legal field, and that's fine. If someone went to law school or is a legal professional though, that's a big gap in basic knowledge for someone who should be an expert. So yeah, perspective matters. Dumb people don't seek to learn anything new. I mean, you can look things up and learn yourself,